again, everybody. My name is Roderich Braun. Together with Georg Lahofer, I'm the board of directors of IACDS. And we also have Bernhard Seidl here, who is the founding chairman of the VBS, the Austrian Association for Concrete Cutting and Drilling. Bernhard, Georg, and I, we are Austrians, and therefore we would like to present the ÖNorm to you. Okay, let's get started. Let us have a look at the agenda first. You can see that we have the webinar divided into 4 parts. We have pre-selected questions from part 1 to part 3, and then in the part 4, we would like to receive your questions and start to have an interesting discussion together with all of you. Okay, so I will start by introducing the IACDS. So yeah, I think all of you know the IACDS. It's an international association that is promoting the industry and the companies that are in this industry. It has been founded in 1995, and as you know, last year would have been the 25th anniversary, which was, of course, unfortunately not possible due to the worldwide pandemic. So it's a little bit sad, but nevertheless, we have to try to do the best out of it. Okay, of course, as you see in the next slide, there is a collection of different places. Of course, as an international association, it's important to have the meetings all over the world and not always on the same place. And you see that there are quite a lot of different places where the meetings have been so far. And I personally came in touch with IACDS in Tokyo in summer 2018. And by the way, there is one picture is missing because there has been another meeting in Munich at the Bauma in 2019. So yeah, so we try to be like in different places to connect from different people from different countries, and yeah, to be like an international and interesting association. Okay, what type of members do we have? There are basically 3 entities. On the one hand, we have the contractors that are doing and performing the jobs on the construction site. Then we have the suppliers who are providing the technologies, the tools, the machines for the contractors. And then we also have the national associations that are representing the companies in their countries. What does IACDS do? There is a few things that IACDS is doing. On the one hand, there are publications that are being released and published. Last year was a special edition because the yearbook was 2020, which was the 25th anniversary of the IACDS. Of course, there are events being organized by IACDS where people have the possibilities to exchange their ideas, their opinions, and their knowledge. And yeah, so I think it's a very good way to exchange knowledge and know-how. Another thing that IACDS is doing is the Diamond Award. This is a special award, probably the most desired award in this kind of industry. It's every 3 years at the Bauma. And in former days, it was only possible to have it for the contractors. But since the last Diamond Award, it's also possible to have it for the suppliers. And yeah, education is of course another thing. There are seminars, and of course now we have webinars. At the board of directors, we decided to do like every month to do now one webinar in order to exchange knowledge and to transfer knowledge to the members, but also to everybody who wishes to participate in the webinar. Okay, now I would quickly like to introduce the VBS, the Austrian Association of Concrete Cutting and Drilling. It was founded as well in 1995. The founding chairman was Bernhard Seidl, as you know already. The chairwoman is now Maria Lang. And yeah, they have been one of the founding members of IACDS as well. Why do we do this webinar? There is actually a little story behind it that I can tell you quickly. At first, it was planned to introduce the ÖNorm at the Bebosa 2020, which was not possible, as you know. And then I was asked to hold the presentation at DEMCON in Sweden, in Stockholm, at the conference, which was also not possible. And yeah, and now we are the first webinar introducing the and presenting the ÖNorm to you. Okay, let us jump into the topic of today, the ÖNorm. It's the Austrian standard for concrete cutting and drilling. Perhaps some of you have already had difficulties with clients that he or she was not satisfied with the work that you have performed. And then in such cases, it's very good to have like a standard. Then you can show, okay, this is exactly what is written in the standard, and these kind of deviations, they are being tolerated, and others are not tolerated, so that everybody has really knows what is accepted and what is not accepted. Yeah, and it's a good guideline and tells that everybody has the same rules. So, what standards exist at a global and European level? As far as we are informed, there is only the ÖNorm, and there is one in Switzerland for this specific type of industry, for the concrete cutting and drilling industry. However, for the demolition industry, there are quite a few standards in many countries. And however, this is a little bit more general, and it is similar, of course, but it's not specifically what the concrete cutting and drilling industry is doing. Therefore, we have to differentiate here. But yeah, so in demolition industry has a lot of standards. But for as far as we are informed, and we discussed this, and we only found in Switzerland there is another specific standard for this, and of course the Austrian standard. Okay, so what is now the ÖNorm? It's basically it's a standard for the mechanical processing of concrete. There are actually 27 different working performances of concrete cutting and drilling, but basically all of them, they can be put into the categories of drilling, cutting, milling, and grinding. And when has it been developed and for what purpose? The initiators have been Werner Havlena, who is also, I think, listening now, Herbert Thun and Bernhard Seidl. The first edition was released in June 2000. Then 4 years later, there have been some small changes been doing. And it was, in 2004 that the second edition has been released. The actual norm that is valid now has been released in 2014. It has been completely revised, and yeah, so at the right side you see now a picture of the official ÖNorm. The title is in German, English, and French, but the rest of the text is only in German. So actually, such a standard should be revised every 3 years. So it might be possible that it will be revised soon again. So the main contents, what are the main contents? Basically, I think I can put it again in 2 categories. On the one hand, you have all those terms that are being used in concrete cutting and drilling, such as wire sawing, milling, and so on. All of you probably know it. In the standard, it's precisely described what has to be done in order that the person who is performing the concrete work can call him or herself a wire sawer, a wall sawer, because there are like certain things that have to be done exactly the way, precisely this way, in order to be named as a wall sawer, wire sawer, and so on. So on the one hand, those performances in concrete and cutting and drilling, they are being described. And on the other hand, there is a clarity between clients and contractors, because the tolerances are being defined. So what kind of deviation is okay and what kind of deviation is not okay anymore. So for all of those working performances, there are tolerances, which is exactly stating this kind of work is okay or not. I took the wall sawing as an example because it's probably one of the most widely used techniques in concrete cutting and drilling. So in order to have called a wall saw according to this standard, the depth must be up to 0.6 meter. The minimum cutting length is now 3 times the cutting depth. The width is approximately 5 millimeters, and the cutting features, the cut is straight. Only the ends have to be rounded out. The cutting plane has to be at least 45 degrees to the mounting plane. And yeah, as you see, also cooling is necessary in this standard. However, now with special saw blades, it's also possible to perform the sawing without water. But then you need a very good vacuum cleaner that is getting rid of the dust. So this is another possibility for revising the standard again. Okay, what kind of tolerances do we have now for the wall sawing? You see here now the depth. There are actually more tolerances. I picked not just the depth, the length, and the width. For the depth, we have 5 centimeters plus minus. If it's up to 5 centimeters, we have plus minus 20%. And then above 5 centimeters, it's plus minus 10%. The length is plus minus 10 millimeters and plus 10% again of the depth. And the width is 2 millimeters plus 10% of the width. And on the right side, you see now a table that is out of the official norm. On the next slide, you see it bigger. It's in German, but I will translate it here for you now. And it's regarding the overcut values. So here you have now 2 saw blades. The one on the left side is completely inside of the concrete to the maximum, and the saw blade on the right hand side is just like to the minimum inside of the concrete. Perhaps it's not always possible to cut through. And now you have, like at the picture on the left side, you have the diameter D1 in centimeters, and in the second picture on the right side, you have it D2, and it's important, of course, that now you have different saw blades. The saw blades are up to 500 to 1,500 millimeters here in this table, and you also have different thicknesses of the material, up to 10 centimeters to 65 centimeters. And yeah, so now exactly when you have like a saw blade of 800 millimeters and the thickness is 20 centimeters, then you have the 11 centimeters of D1, or for instance, again, if you have 800 millimeter saw blade and you have again 20 centimeter of the thickness, then you have 34 centimeters. Okay, let's move on to the next question. In what way does it contribute to the professionalization of the industry? General, of course, it's a basis for the contracts. When contracts are being elaborated between the client and the contractor. In Austria, it's the state of the art. So most companies use this kind of standard. And it's also a regulation and a guideline for those who use it. How is it applied by the drilling and sawing companies? As already mentioned, a lot of companies refer to the ÖNorm in the general terms and conditions. But it comes to use then when you have unclarities, when there are unclarities, when the customer doesn't want to pay. And then it's a big use to have like this standard, and you can have clarity in terms of execution or the billing. And also if there are like disputes at the court, then you have like the standard as the basis for the official experts. Okay, this was basically it, the introduction to the ÖNorm. And yeah, so now we are very curious about the questions that you have in the comments, and yeah, would like to start an interesting discussion with you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Roderich. Very clear, very interesting presentation. I invite both Georg and Bernard to connect their cameras and turn their mics on. Here is Georg, and here is Bernard. So instead of introducing yourselves, I'm going to ask you to present yourselves, say who you are and what you do. So that will give our audience a little bit better understanding. So maybe we can start with Bernard.
Hi, I'm Bernard Seidl. I'm the CIO from a soil and drilling company near Salzburg, and I was the founder of the VBS, and I in the team to build the standards, and I'm open for your questions.
Thank you very much for being available for this kind of webinars. Thank you, Bernard. Maybe now, Georg, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Georg Lahofer. I'm a contractor of concrete drilling and sawing, and I have my company in 2 locations, in Vienna and in Graz, and I'm also a board member of the VBS in Austria.
Thank you very much. As I said before, thank you for being available for this kind of webinars, and also thank you for sharing the information about the ÖNorm. We have been discussing within the IACDS for a little while the possibility of adapting this standard to other countries. We have to explain to our audience that the ÖNorm as it is today, it's a very unique scenario. In other countries such as the US, there are best practices and guidelines. In the UK, it's a concrete cutting code. In France, it's a reference CL, but the approach is slightly different. Probably from a legal point of view, the Austrian standard is the best, is the one that creates more assurance to the people involved in the contract. But I want to ask you a very practical question, and it's why? Bernard, you were involved in the founding of the association, and at some point you decided to start a standard. What drove you to create a standard? Was it that you had issues, you had conflicts, or you just wanted to raise the awareness about the professionalism of the industry?
Yes, we in other kinds of some standards we have in many branches have standards. Only in our branch we have not standards, and the companies you make vom Geschäft they need they build their own standards, and the billing was very difficult, and we must have a standards to have all the same basis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bernard. I have to mention here somebody that was also part of the creation of the norm, that always for many years has been involved in the IACDS, Bernard Hablena. And I remember that he used to say in the meetings that if you don't have a standard, you don't have something to reference, your work to. So he always was in favor of fostering standards. So Georg, from a practical point of view, every day in your work as a contractor, when do you use the standard? Do you use it only as a reference on the contract? Do you reach out to the standard when you have differences with the customer, or is just there just in case?
Yes, in every case you told us. In Austria, every construction contract is based on the standards, because there are standards not only for drilling and sawing, also for other types of work, and so every contract is based on the ÖNorms.
Okay.
And we use it also not only for the contracts, for the tolerances and for the guidelines and so on.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the standard is kind of the background of your contract and your relationship with the customer.
Yes.
So may I ask you, is there anything on the standard that helps the manufacturers, companies like Braun or other companies on the market, that what is the value from a manufacturer point of view? What does it bring to the table? Or is really not useful to them because it's more oriented to the contract itself?
I think it's rather oriented to the contractors that are, because they are using tolerances then. So it's rather a help for them if they have like difficulties with the clients and with billings or defects, the client is not satisfied with it. So I think it's rather a help and the good, it's a help for the contractors, I would say. So we as a supplier, we're not really that much involved in it. Okay. But of course, it's interesting for us to know that this standard is being used by our clients who are the contractors. So it absolutely makes sense to also to get involved in this. And actually, the ÖNorm was originally it was the idea to make a European norm standard out of it. But yeah, this did not happen, and now we have it as an Austrian standard.
Okay. Well, that's a very good point. We are, on the exchange, on the chat, and we invite everybody. If you have questions, to post them on the chat. It's on the right part of your screen. But we have prepared a few questions. This point that you mentioned, Roderich, is very interesting. Developing the standard at European level. Just to explain to our audience, we know that the German association is in contact with the Austrian association, and seeing the possibility of adapting the standard and implementing a similar document in Germany. And which point are those conversations? Bernard or Georg, maybe?
We had a meeting with the Germans together last year by their standards, by the Austrian standards. But it's not so easy to take the Austrian norm for the Germans, and it's not so easy to do this.
Yeah, we had. I asked the question, but we also had a discussion about the possibility of implementing the standard at European level. And because of the contents and the way in which the standard is designed, it tackles a lot of the things that in other countries are not included, but also tackles things that are now in the Eurocodes, the standards for construction. So this is one of the challenges that we see for implementing it, quick in other countries. It would have an advantage, which is a broader acceptation of the standard, but it will have a disadvantage that we want to share with you and see what you think about it. And the main disadvantage would be that if it becomes European, it will be much more difficult to update it and to get everybody to agree. How would you feel about that? Is the standard mature enough that there are no, because Roderich mentioned before that there have been already 3 revisions. What do you think about that? How would you feel about making it European?
Roderich, kannst du übersetzen? Ich sage es in Deutsch, ja. Grundsätzlich ist es technisch möglich, europäisch das zu machen, aber im Großen und Ganzen hat uns das österreichische Normungsinstitut erklärt, in Europa gibt es sehr viele wichtigere Dinge wie die Norm der Betonbohrer auf europäischem Niveau zu heben. Also man kann es angehen und es ist sehr teuer und die Wahrscheinlichkeit, dass es in den nächsten Jahren oder Jahrzehnten angegangen wird, ist leider sehr gering.
Okay. So it would be actually technical, it's possible. However, it's very expensive, and they have been told that there are actually more important things to do than to make the Austrian standard to a European standard. So this is basically what they have been told, that it's very unlikely that the Austrian standard will be promoted, so to say, to a European standard, but technically it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for the reply, and also thank you for answering in German, Bernard, because a good part of our audience is German speaking, so this way we cover both audiences. Thank you. We have some questions from the audience. one of them is, has the standard grow with the time? Does it did it allow law changes, or was it reflected in any other standard document or law? Is it reflected on the, for instance, on the rules for the construction industry?
Ja, sollte.
I think Bernhard should give the answer, because by the first time and the second time I wasn't involved.
Okay, I am in German. Also grundsätzlich haben wir diese Norm mühsam auf die Wege gebracht, und dann wird sie automatisch überarbeitet und wird auch an die anderen Normen angepasst, weil es wird auch Bezug genommen auf andere Normen für die Vergabe oder andere Normen, und diese wird immer angepasst. Es ist kein gesetzlicher Auftrag, weil eine Norm in Österreich wird in einem Verein eigentlich mit allen beteiligten Partnern erarbeitet, und darum wird es aber auch regelmäßig alle 5-10 Jahre überarbeitet. Bitte, Roderich.
Yeah, so it was a lot of effort to create the Austrian standard, the ÖNorm, and it has to be revised regularly. But yeah, there is no law actually that you have to revise it, but it should be revised every 5 to 10 years. And also Werner Havlena, he told me that it should be revised every 5 years or so. So yeah, so it was actually a lot of work, a lot of effort, and also it refers to other standards as well. So yeah, so it always have to be. It's necessary that you have a look at it constantly, permanently, and to revise it when it's necessary.
Okay, more questions. A question also from the audience. In this case, is coming from the UK. You know, what were the major challenges, or the major changes? I'm sorry, the major changes from the first to the third edition, because Roderich mentioned before that there have been a lot of changes or significant revision on the third one. So what did you find that you needed to update?
Mache ich die Antwort. Grundsätzlich ist eine Norm immer ein Kompromiss, damit alle Partner, also von der Auftragsseite und von der Ausführungsseite, einverstanden sind. Und es war die erste Norm ein Kompromiss, ein sehr guter Kompromiss. Und die zweite Anpassung war nur eine kleine Anpassung, da sind Begrifflichkeiten geändert worden, also Bezüge zu anderen Normen, ohne Einbindung ohne große Einbindung des österreichischen Fachverbandes. Die dritte Überarbeitung wurde von uns angestoßen, um mehr Detailschärfe zu haben. Also es waren sehr viele allgemeine Dinge drinnen. Es wurde aber uns eigentlich sehr schwer gemacht, viele Sachen zu regeln, und am Ende des Tages haben wir auch ein paar Sachen verbessern können, aber auch ein paar Sachen nicht mehr so genau regeln dürfen und können, wie wir das eigentlich vorgehabt haben. Und unser großes Ziel wäre auch ein standardisiertes Leistungsverzeichnis, wo auch der VBS mitreden darf und kann, das leider noch nicht mit der ÖNorm in Verbindung ist.
Okay, so yeah, it was a lot of effort, the first one,
okay.
The first edition, and it was a compromise between the client and the contractor, a good compromise. And then at the second edition, it was only actually a few terms that have been changed, that have been like given different names. And then like the VBS, the Austrian Association, was only involved a little bit in the second edition. And then for the third edition, it was completely revised. The VBS was involved a lot. And yeah, and now it's valid since 2014.
Okay, so if I understand correctly from what Bernard has just mentioned, clients also participate in the process of putting together their standard. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a compromise between the clients and the contractors.
Okay, So a few more questions. Does the current standard include any requirements about the training of the operators performing the job?
Not as far as I know.
No.
Not.
No.
Is this developed in any other way by the Austrian industry? I mean, how the training of the operator should be, or maybe the requirements for the companies performing the job? Is that included also in the standard?
Training is
No.
part of this standard.
It's only a team of the VWs.
Okay. So the standard, the current standard, does not specify what kind of requirements the company performing the job. It's only talking about the technical specification of the job itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's very technical. It's what kind of technical performances have to be done in order to be like a wall saw or wire saw.
And talking about this, the technical specifications, does the norm go into detail? This is, one of the questions that a lot of the concrete cutting contractors have a lot of issues, is like where the cut should be made, who should mark the cut, and in which way, and so on. Does the Austrian standard go into that detail?
I don't think so. Bezüglich Markierungen, I don't think so that is mentioned in the. So I didn't find anything regarding.
I don't think so. No.
No.
Okay, because that's a proposal, a suggestion from the audience for the next revision to specify, how to do the marking, who should do it, and in which way. Yeah. Okay. So more comments from the audience. The tolerances, you say that they are from the last revision. Were they updated with the IACDS calculations, or you did not use the IACDS calculations yet? You have your own. How are the tolerances compared to the international ones? Yeah.
No.
I know that the standard is older than the IACDS tolerances. In fact, Werner Hablena was actively involved in implementing and creating the standard for tolerances across countries, and we revised them recently. It's possible that because they were revised, you haven't included them.
It's in German. Es war auch eine Diskussion, ob ein Standard jetzt ein Qualitätszeichen ist, ob ich als super Betrieb irgendwelche Toleranzen einhalten kann. Und es war die andere Seite in der Diskussion auf dem internationalen Niveau. Die wollten 5 Zentimeter Abweichung auch noch tolerieren. Also das ist immer der Spagat zwischen dem, was eventuell technisch mit fast keiner Toleranz ausgeführt wird, bis hin zu großen Toleranzen, damit für den Anwender kein Mangel auftritt.
So there are basically two sides. The one side tries to have it really very precisely, to have tolerances very, very little, and then this is rather from the international side. They want to have very big tolerances so that it's very easy for the contractor. But from the Austrian standard, it's actually quite the tolerances are quite small.
Okay, that's good.
Kind of quality.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, it makes sense because being a highly specialized country with the contractors highly specialized. In fact, you have the standard and so on. It makes sense. With the international standards, we are open to a much broader audience, so it really makes sense. Let's say, God forbid, but let's say there is an accident on a concrete cutting job site, and one of your contractors has an accident. The question here is, how does this standard help everyone involved to clear out the responsibilities, whose fault it was, in which way the standard can help if there is an accident?
I think it's only when the tolerances are not okay.
but you know, if the machine was not properly anchored, if the standard goes into detail on how to do the anchoring, how to do the operations, you know, because that could be really a driver for the industry to adopt this kind of standards in more countries. If it helps the industry to prevent, you know, responsibilities or liabilities in case there's an accident. What do you think about this? Maybe I don't know if you want to rephrase the question, Roderich, on to adapt it to the market. You know, how could it help to include this in the standard?
Okay, er möchte eigentlich wissen, also wenn jetzt ein Unfall passiert auf der Baustelle, kann da die Norm einbezogen werden, um jetzt hier irgendwie zu wissen, wer hat jetzt Schuld, wer hat keine Schuld?
Okay. Also grundsätzlich hat die Norm jetzt für den Arbeitsschutz keine Bedeutung. Es ist wirklich nur Toleranzen, Abrechnung, Begriffserklärung. Also das ist die Hauptgruppen und den Bezug auf welche ÖNormen. Ein Arbeitsunfall hat selten mit einer Toleranz einer Säge oder sonst was zu tun. Also Arbeitssicherheit wird in Österreich in ganz anderen Gesetzen geregelt. Also das wird nicht über Toleranzen geregelt, aber mit einer ÖNorm geregelt, sagen wir so.
So this is actually not part of the ÖNorm because this is like settled in other laws if there is an accident at the construction site. So the Austrian standard only focuses on the tolerances and the description of the work that is being done for the mechanical processing of concrete. So and it's very rare that like the tolerances are referred regarding an accident.
Okay. Thank you very much for the reply. I'm putting you difficult questions, but we're trying to see if this is you know, could be a driver, international driver. I'll share with you another couple of questions that come very often to the table on the IACDS, as Roderich knows, and it's you know, more and more water treatment and waste treatment from the concrete cutting is becoming an issue. You know, how do we recycle that? How do we handle that kind of material? Who is responsible? Who pays for what? So is this either in the current standard or maybe in the horizon for the future?
Es ist in der Zukunft angedacht, sicher bei der nächsten Überarbeitung solche Sachen auch zu regeln. Zurzeit ist es kein Standard. Es gibt aber andere Normen, die genau regeln, wie es mit Verschmutzung auf der Baustelle ist und wer welche Sachen im Preis einrechnen muss und wer für diesen Entsorgung und für die Weiterverwendung von Materialien oder Abwässern zuständig ist.
So there are other standards that are including this kind of issues, but at the Austrian standard, it's not involved at the moment. But it's an idea for the future to also, to also refer to this kind of point.
Yeah. Thank you very much in that sense, because this is becoming an issue everywhere. Yeah. In fact, we have other things on the table that, you know, also could be an idea for the next revision of the standard, such the anchoring of the machines. You know, as you know, the German association together with the VDMA has produced a very interesting guide on how to calculate the anchoring. And ourselves from IACDS also put together some recommendations about how to anchor the equipment. You think this could be useful for the Austrian standard to include some references to the anchoring of the equipment? You know, just as an example. What do you think, Georg?
If the anchoring is going into the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but that's not the really topic of the norm.
If I may, you know, let's say that I'm a contractor from another country and I want to have a reference on how the standard helps the local contractor from Austria on the relationships with the customer. You know, be the customer an individual that require the opening of a window, or be the customer a construction company? So in which cases you need to refer to the standard more often, or how does the standard help to the contractor, to the specialized contractor, to do the business?
Like Roderich said in the presentation, it's based in every contract, the standard, because there are many other standards, they are also part of the contract, and it depends the state of the art of a standard, and the regulations and the guidelines between contractors.
Okay, thank you very much, Georg. Maybe Bernard wants to add something. If it is in German, it's also okay.
Okay. The standards in German, dass ob man den Standard oder die ÖNorm jetzt vereinbart hat oder nicht, eben gilt sie trotzdem, ob man es jetzt im Vertrag drinnen hat oder nicht, im Streitfall. Und nur im Streitfall wird eigentlich die ÖNorm dann wichtig, wird sie trotzdem herangezogen für sowas. Für den Vertrag selber mit dem Auftraggeber ist das Vereinbaren der ÖNorm eigentlich eine Sicherheit für beide, aber es ist nicht Pflicht und es ist auch kein Vorteil für den Auftragnehmer oder für die Company, dass die das vereinbart oder nicht.
So it's not a must to have like the Austrian standard in the contract when you have if there is like a contract between the client and the contractor, so you don't have to include it. But if there is then a case of dispute, then the official experts, they have a look at the Austrian standard and can judge, okay, this was right or this was not right.
Okay, so that's a really good point, Roderich. Well, thank you, Bernard. And okay, what kind of disputes that you have more often and related with the standard, and in which the standard will help you? Okay, people argue about this because it's fixed on the standard. It's easier for us. What are the issues that you usually have to refer to the standard as a way to solve the problem? What are the most typical ones?
Often the tolerances when the cut is not so how it should be. So the tolerances are one of the most part of the standard we need in our daily business.
Okay. It's not the contracting terms or the term for the execution of the job. That's usually not an issue.
The terms are only a problem in in disputes.
Oh, okay.
If you have a dispute, then are the terms good.
Yeah. So, for instance, if the client is not satisfied with the cut, then you have a look at the Austrian standard, and then you can really see, okay, this was 3 centimeters too much, or actually no, the cut was okay. So basically only it's being used when there is really a little dispute between the client and the contractor.
Thank you.
That's a very good explanation. I'm putting you difficult questions because that's what I'm getting. So, but I understand from the presentation that Roderich made before that, on the standard you explained that if you are cutting with a wall saw, there will be an overcut, and what you have to expect, and that the customer, there's no argument between the architect that hires you for the job or the contractor. So I understand that's is that correct? That if there's an overcut, there will be no issues because they are already explained on the standard.
Yes.
Es ist auch eben das System auf der Baustelle wird gearbeitet und die Mitarbeiter sind geschult in den Standards, was ist, aber man soll so genau wie möglich arbeiten. Aber es ist immer wichtig, weil man weiß, wenn bei einer Bohrung was ausbricht, ob das jetzt zu viel ist oder zu wenig. Und auch geregelt sind, wie man das Maß richtig aufnimmt auf der Baustelle. von wie lang ist ein schräges Bohrloch zum Beispiel, ist darin standardisiert. Das heißt, man kann nicht, jeder Bauleiter will ein Loch messen, wie er es zu seinem Vorteil hat, und da ist das Maß, das Aufmaß auch geregelt zu arbeiten.
Yeah. So the employees that are doing like the work on the job site, on the construction site, they are trained on the Austrian standard, and also how to measure if there is like some deviation, they are trained how to measure it, and if it's exactly defined how such deviations have to be measured.
Okay. We have a very good question related to this topic, and it's coming from the UK. As I said before, the UK association, the DSA, has a very good concrete cutting code, which is used also as a reference. But the question actually, which is again, I think is very smart, is can the tolerances and the specifications of the standard be used as a pre-contract tool for the engineering and designers to calculate the tolerances that they will have on the final result? It's a tricky one. This is a technical one. Maybe you want to translate it, Roderich.
Can you repeat again, please?
Very long.
I said it's a tricky one. So the question is, can the specifications described in the Austrian standard be used as a pre-contract or as a tool for the engineering and the designers, so they know what the tolerances should be, and when they design and they calculate, what the end result will be like? Is that one case study?
Okay. Schwierige Frage. Er fragt, ob jetzt die ÖNorm jetzt im Vorfeld schon benutzt werden kann, um daraus zu schließen dann, was jetzt dann für genaue Ergebnisse erzielt werden sollen.
Hatte ich noch nie, ne?
Also grundsätzlich kann man bei der Kalkulation, also jetzt für ein Angebot, davon ausgehen, dass man diese Toleranzen einhalten soll. Der Auftraggeber kann aber auch im Vorfeld sagen, er braucht bessere oder kleinere Toleranzen, weil er irgendeinen speziellen Anspruch an den Baukörper dann hat. Dann muss man auch darauf eingehen und alles unternehmen, um diese Toleranzen noch zu verringern.
Yeah. So basically, of course, it's necessary, and they try to keep the tolerances that are in the Austrian standard. But sometimes it's also possible that the client wishes to have even better tolerances, and then of course you have to try to achieve that.
Okay, that's a very good point. Thank you. Another question is, how are these standards advertised or shown to the industry or to other contractors, so they know what to ask and they ask for professionals? How do you market? How do you advertise this standard? Or really it's something that is not done on a regular basis?
So if it's promoted, right?
Yeah.
The standards are promoted from the Austrian standards, and there you can buy the standards, and this is communicated by the Roderich Wirtschaftskammer.
By the Austrian Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, to all members.
Okay. That's very good. That's very good. Thank you for the reply. We have a lot of colleagues and friends from all over the world connected now. From Switzerland, from the UK, from many places. But we want to say hello in a special way to Werner Hablena, who was one of the authors of the first standard, who's saying thank you to the speakers for the presentation. But we also want to say thank you to Werner. I mean, he has been involved with IACDS for many years. He's one of the founding fathers. So on his behalf, thank you for the presentation, and also thank you hello to Werner Hablena. I want to ask you another question. If you were to explain the standard to a new employee in your company and say why this is relevant for you, what kind of liabilities or what kind of things it will prevent from you, or what kind of responsibilities you have. Let's say that you have somebody that is completely new and is starting to learn the tools. How would you explain very shortly why this is important for your company?
from my company.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yes. Das Wichtigste ist eben immer erstens die Abrechnung der Arbeit, und da ist bei uns in den Standards die Arbeit und das Aufmaß gerechnet und nachher die Frage, ob alles richtig ist. Also wenn der Bauherr oder der Auftraggeber sagt, er kann irgendwas, ein Bauteil nicht einbauen, weil das nicht genau geschnitten ist, oder es ist eine Bohrung ausgeplatzt, nachher kommt er auf die Firma zu und dann muss man sagen, bis daher war es richtig und das braucht er nicht zu zahlen, beziehungsweise wenn es ganz schlimm kommt, dann kann auch Ersatzansprüche an die Firma gestellt werden, weil man was falsch gemacht hat.
Mm-hmm. So if there is an error at the construction site, then of course it's regarding the billing, regarding the accounting, it's necessary. Okay, the client has to pay until this this party has to pay, and the rest he doesn't have to pay because it was a mistake. So and yeah, and of course the employees have to be trained in the standards, so they really know what to do when they're on the construction site.
Okay, thank you very much.
We want to deliver quality work to our clients, and so we have to work with the standards.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's say that we are in the same scenario, but instead of with a new employee, you're trying to explain that to a company that is your customer and actually is just looking for a price, is not really so much looking for the quality. How would you convince a customer based on the standard that they should work with a professional that follows the standard?
Also wenn der Kunde will, dass eher quasi einen günstigen Preis hat und
then we can say we work with the standards, with the tolerances of the standards, and with the guidelines of the standards, and so you have quality work, and this costs more.
Okay.
Basically a proof of quality, so to say that if the standard is being used, the quality should be correct.
Yes, yeah.
It should.
Thank you very much for the comment. We are receiving through the chat, different comments from other countries. Like for instance, from Switzerland, our Swiss colleagues are saying that in Switzerland the standard is part of a much larger regulations, which is the standard for the construction works, and this is done through different associations, including the Swiss Concrete Cutting Association, and they are involved in the standardization. And we also getting comments from the UK. In the UK, we have a code of the code of working practice that all the operators receive. From your comments before, Bernard, I understand that all your new employees in Austria are trained to the standards on how to measure them, and all the processes that are explained on the standard, they're also explained to all your workers. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So I don't know if you have any final comments. We are about to close. Once again, I want to say thank you to Werner Hablena, but I don't know if you have any final comments from your experience, Bernard. You have been involved with the Austrian Association for years. You have seen how this has evolved. Any final comments for the colleagues all around the world?
Ja, schöne Grüße auf jeden Fall einmal aus Salzburg, und ich freue mich auf jeden Fall, wenn wir mal wieder im IACDS zusammenkommen können. Also ich werde mir wieder mal Zeit nehmen, auch daran teilzunehmen. Ich sage grundsätzlich zu den Standards oder ÖNorm, dass es wichtig wäre, dass es in den Ländern sowas gibt, weil es ist viel Sicherheit für die Anwenderbetriebe, um ein Schriftstück zu haben, ob das jetzt eine wirkliche Norm ist oder ob das Regelwerk, wie es in anderen Ländern gibt. Wichtig ist, wenn was passiert, dann muss man sich auf solchen Standards einfach als Unternehmer verlassen können.
So he's sending his greetings from Salzburg to everybody. He hopes that he can join the IACDS meetings again when it will be possible again. Personally, and yeah, he really says that that it's having such a standard is kind of a security, like and assures that it's kind of a protection for your company. So it absolutely makes sense to have this kind of standard as a help for the company.
Yeah, that's really a good point, and we are actually looking forward to the process. Our German association, the FBS, is doing, reading the standard and see how to adopt it and seeing it with a different perspective, because from that experience we also want to see how this could be implemented internationally. A question for Georg, and is that your final comments, if there were a list of things that you would like to have on the standard and that today they are not, what would you put in there? You know, if you could make a wish list to the Santa Claus and say, I want on the standard this, and this, what would it be?
Maybe this is what Bernhard already said with the, must check it, the word, is a performance description, die Leistungsbeschreibung. This should be, this would be a good point for the standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your participation as well, Georg. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And last but not least, you know, once again, thank you, Roderich, for your participation as a speaker, translator, a little bit of everything. So thank you for your availability. And I'm going to ask you one last question, and then it's open to you to send your final comments. And for you as a manufacturer, if you could suggest something to the contractors to include on the standard that actually will also, you know, reduce your liability. Let's say that, you know, machines always have to operate with covers, or, you know, any kind of, what would it be? You know, what would you suggest that, you know, for my own liability and for the good of the contractors, I would suggest to include on the standard?
Of course, from a manufacturer point of view, it would be very good if also like it's included in such a standard that, of course, the machine, the equipment, the tools have to be in perfect condition, and that also the operators have to be trained properly, so in order that accidents and mistakes are being prevented.
Okay. Any final comment from your side to our colleagues?
Final comment from my side. So I would like to say thank you to everybody. This webinar was possible due to a cooperation between IACDS, the VBS, and Braun, and of course to everybody who participated and registered in this webinar. Otherwise, it would not make sense to make a webinar. So thank you for the interest to everybody, and best wishes from Austria, from Vöcklerbruck. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the three speakers. Thank you also to our audience. I would like to remind you that the question after this webinar, you will receive a questionnaire that is very helpful to improve. So if there is something that you like, let us know. If there is something that you see that we could do better, please also let us know. And for everyone, this webinar after a few days will be posted on the IACDS website. And, you know, people can record it. Any of the IACDS members can see it online, because it will be recorded over there. So thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to the audience, and we see you in the next webinar.